read you a poem that I wrote, but first I want to give a little bit of context to the poem, and then I'm going to just talk a little bit about what the poem really kind of means to me, and some of the thoughts that I've had since I wrote it. So the poem is called A New Beauty, and I wrote it whilst I was sat on a train carving my way through the countryside in Poland, heading to Krakow from visiting Auschwitz Birkenau. And for many of you, I'm sure you can imagine, especially if you've been there, the kind of headspace that I was in at the time, really questioning the actions of humanity and feeling grief. And so as I sat on the train and looked out over the countryside, which I thought was very beautiful, this poem started to form in my mind. Now the poem isn't anything to do with concentration camps or war. It's actually to do with nature and our perception of beauty. So, A New Beauty. When did beauty become bestowed onto pastures of ploughed meadow? As if the best we can offer is rolling hills of barren lines, edged by bush, bracken and hedgerow, scared blackbirds and quivering field mice on the sidelines, prayerfully awaiting death from machines, or becoming a seemingly easy catch for the red kites, despite the scarcity and variety of available dinner delights. The all too common seasoning of pesticides and fertiliser taint the prey. Some new fusion dish presented freely and slowing natural decay. So the poem has a flow through it where it starts off just kind of touching on this idea of nature and beauty, but offering a new lens to see it through. This lens of I guess kind of cultivated landscapes, and this idea of beauty being illusion. And then as we move through the poem, we start to square things off, create lines, even sidelines. Then we move into the use of machinery and humanity coming into play even more. Then we move into chemicals and how chemicals are tainting the land. And finally this idea of beauty in a fusion dish, and actually slowing natural decay. So just going into a little bit more detail, this first line, when did beauty become bestowed onto pastures of ploughed meadow, really speaks about this illusion of beauty, really questioning what's conventional, this conventional perception of what nature is and how beautiful nature is, when actually often when we look at nature we're looking at cultivated landscape, man-made landscapes in a sense, and so it's kind of saying the best we can offer is these rolling hills with these lines, these barren lines cutting through them, which is interesting as I sat on a train which cuts its way through the landscape. So this idea of these lines and these edges of bush and bracken and hedgerow, edging these cultivated areas, dividing everything up, dividing by humanity, by human action. And then I take that a little bit further as well. just to talk about sidelines and this idea of this square. If you think about a football field or something, this square of almost manufactured grass, this over-tended, almost unnatural grass in these rectangles that really doesn't feel very natural to me. So with that, we start looking at the actual destruction of wildlife and the wilderness. And I think many years ago, those fields would have just been bush and bracken and trees and this huge biodiversity, and that's been taken away and kind of given these little corridors of life, corridors of safety for small mammals, just to kind of to hide in and wait their turn to run out and eat and run back, whilst machines plough and destroy further the nature, and whilst flying overhead is birds of prey, which of course is natural, but then it seems like maybe it's an easy life for the birds of prey, but then they're fighting with this idea of nature being tainted, this chemical contamination of the land through pesticides, through fertilisers, just so that we can try and increase agricultural yield or increase profit margins within intensive farming. This poem was never meant as a plight against farming or agricultural practices in any way. It just seemed to be what I happened to be looking at out of the window, I guess. So then this idea of this really unnatural dinner delights coming in, this seasoning of pesticides and fertiliser, this tainting of the soil, and I wanted to link that into humanity and how actually now most of our food, the entire food chain really, has been tainted by chemicals, man-made chemicals. That's why I used this idea of this fusion dish. I wanted to add this idea of like this fine dining, fancy kind of restaurant experience that you might expect. And then this idea of slowing natural decay as well, which links into this idea of beauty within the person, this idea of staying young forever and staying beautiful, and the health, well-being and pharmaceutical industries trying to slow natural decay. Just kind of points to this whole idea of a disconnection from nature that I feel that humanity has at present. And then this idea of this what is progress? Are we actually making progress as we completely erode what nature is, and we create this illusion of what nature is, because I feel like we're disconnected from it and we don't actually know anymore what true nature is. To try and find a natural setting that has been untouched by some kind of human destruction, whether it be agriculture or production of plastics, or even just laying down concretes and asphalt and creating roads and paths and the like. So essentially the poem is really a call for reflection on the relationship with nature, and it's a kind of a request to challenge the way that you see the world, the way that you see nature, look a little bit deeper, try a different lens on, and see what comes up for you. So I'll just read the poem one more time for you, and then end the video. Thank you very much for watching. A new beauty. When did beauty become bestowed onto pastures of ploughed meadow, as if the best we can offer is rolling hills of barren lines, edged by bush, bracken and hedgerow. Scared blackbirds are quivering field mice on the sidelines, prayerfully awaiting death from the machines, or becoming a seemingly easy catch for the red kites. Despite the scarcity and variety of available dinner delights, the all too common seasoning of pesticides and fertiliser taints the prey, like some new fusion dish presented freely and slowing the natural decay.